Hi guys, I'm Philip J. Watt and welcome to the Redesigning Society podcast. This week's interview is with Michael Tellinger. Many of you will be familiar with Michael, but for those who aren't, he is an author, researcher, presenter, humanitarian, and basically just a genuine man who aims to bring some truth, justice, and honour to the way that we design our social system. He is the author of at least 6 books that I'm aware of. His original work focused on ancient civilizations and ancient technologies, particularly in South Africa, and he uncovered many temples and sites and other apparatuses of an unknown civilization of that region. And not only did he focus on the very existence of this particular civilization, but also some of the technological and even philosophical advancements that they've made, particularly around sound and resonance. And that concept that Nikola Tesla spoke of, that you can think of the universe in terms of sound, vibration, and frequency, or something to that effect, or I may have paraphrased that a little bit. But it's really important that we do understand as we move forward how we are made of sound, vibration, frequency, energy, and that the way that we move forward technologically and also medically, how sound and vibration can help facilitate healing on a physiological level and potentially even energetic levels as well. It's one of those subjects that are really not getting the attention that needs to. So as you move past the beginning of the 21st century, you'll see a lot more discussion and technological advancement around how sound can impact our lives on both a collective and an individual level. So as Michael evolved through his own experience uncovering this civilization in South Africa, he began to unpack some of the problems, challenges, and outright deceptions of the way that our current social system has been designed. One of his latest books, Ubuntu Contributionism, details what is wrong, what's not working with the way our social system is designed, but also puts forward a new model, a new approach to bringing that justice and love and peace and prosperity and abundance to the way that humanity can actually move forward. It has attracted so much attention. Michael has really had a huge influence across the world, especially to those people who are looking for new ways for humanity to move forward. Now, he has really become an icon on alternative perspectives on money, on politics, on many different areas, to the point where political parties were created in various countries across the world trying to undermine the current system. Last year, he attempted in South Africa to get an Ubuntu political party up and established in certain local governments, but unfortunately he was unsuccessful, just like it was also in the UK, Australia, and elsewhere. So now he's taking a different approach. That approach is called the One Small Town Project, and he has already garnered the attention of a small town in Canada called North Frontenac, where the mayor from that town is in the process of implementing this One Small Town project. So it's very, very exciting. These are very exciting times in terms of the raising of consciousness across our planet. Obviously, as I've spoken about many times before, huge portions of the population are really going into the depths of darkness. But on the other side of the coin, there are many people who are embracing their shadow side, learning to transmute it, learning to heal it, learning to face it, and raising their energy, their vibration, their frequency, their sound, their love, their peace, their honor, their authenticity, their internal abundance in response, in accordance with the facing of their shadow self. And that is inevitably translating into people becoming more active in their local communities and becoming more conscious of the alternative systemic models that we could potentially at least trial to see where we could really take this, because ultimately humanity is subject to unbelievable amounts of suffering. which is directly related to the way that our social system is designed. That is not advanced. That is not enlightened. That is not empowered. We are very much at the beginnings of becoming an advanced species. Just because we've got some pretty fancy technologies like the computers that I'm working in front of right now, doesn't mean that we are anywhere near a stage in our development that we can consider advanced or even ingenious. Because if we have a look at around the world today, the physiological, the emotional, philosophical, the sexual, the creative, the relational, there is so much suffering on so many different levels that people really haven't even begun to implement a process of empowerment for themselves and their local communities. But in saying that, yes, it does sound dire, but we do have so much potential. We have opportunity, we have the will, we have the courage, and we have the outright goodness in us to really move forward in that direction from this point. So which fork in the road are we going to choose? Are we going to go further into control, or are we going to go further into freedom? And the way that we design our social system, both on local, national, and international levels, certainly is going to be a huge influence on whether or not we go into a sovereign future for ourselves and our children, or if we go into further subtle enslavements through debt-based monetary systems and ideological brainwashing that we are all very much subject to, some more than others. So instead of me harping on about what Michael stands for, I've really tried to present a genuine picture of Michael and what we're going to talk about today, which is this system, which is North Frontenac and that implementation process in Canada. But I found a quote by Michael on one of his websites, ubuntuplanet.org, but I think it does represent Michael really well, and I think it represents the challenge that we do face on a planetary scale. So here it is. We can no longer sit idly, watching the destruction of our people, our communities, our countries, and our human potential by greedy corporations supported by governments with no remorse for their actions or accountability to the people they are supposed to serve. We can no longer sit silently, hoping that someone will do something to stop this assault on our liberties and future prosperity. It has fallen on the shoulders of the common people to unite and create a new way, a new system, a future filled with abundance and prosperity for ourselves and our children. We are creating a totally new system free from economic slavery, where we turn competition into collaboration, a new social structure where we all benefit from our collective efforts and individual talents, a new world where people are put before profits, and the resources and materials are used to enrich all our lives. Welcome to the world of Ubuntu and contributionism. So I think that really does set up the stage for this interview. I hope you enjoy it. Listen through to the end. Subscribe to the Redesigning Society podcast on iTunes or SoundCloud or various other podcast apps. Follow me at the Conscious Society YouTube channel where I host these interviews as well. You can follow me on Facebook at Philip J. Watt and my personal development website, which is vitalityguidance.com, or my social activism website, which is pushingthetippingpoint.com. And much love for pressing play. Welcome to the RS podcast again, Michael.
Hello, Phil. Lovely to talk to you again, my friend.
Yes, it's been, I think, around a year since we met on Bondi Beach in Sydney, and it was a few months before that we recorded our last podcast, our last interview. So there's lots been happening. I'm so excited to talk about North Frontenac and what's going on over there in the small town with the small town plan. But in our pre-interview, we were just discussing how crazy the world is getting, and it's a magical mess. As I said, there's a lot of people going further into the depths of deception and lies and all the bullshit. But there's a lot of people raising their awareness, increasing their vibration, and stepping more into their authenticity, which includes understanding more about what's going on in the scam we call the system, as well as the unifying principles that sort of interconnect all of life on this planet and reality itself. So what's your take on what's going on in the world?
Well, you put it beautifully. It is a duality. It's like there are now two distinct groups of people in the world: the conscious ones, the spiritually minded, open-minded people that are working very hard towards creating a new reality and a new world of abundance and prosperity. And there are many movements like Ubuntu and Thrive and New Earth and Zeitgeist and a whole millions and millions of people that are working towards creating a new beautiful reality for us. And then there's this other dark side of this world that I don't even know what to call it anymore. The one that's driven by the media and CNN and the mainstream, the so-called, if you can call them mainstream, because I don't know if they are actually mainstream. I think the fringe has become the mainstream, but we just don't know that yet. And this television-driven insanity. It's just, yeah, as you said, it's so blatantly obvious. It's like a show. It's like we're half of the world is trapped in the Truman Show and they don't realize it.
Yes, it's very confusing for many because on one level there are people becoming more conscious, but then there are so many psyops and false rabbit holes and the tunnels of untruth that people get sucked into and a little bit dazed and confused and still manage to create dogmas and bias around what's going on in the world, even though they're conscious, but people who are trying to become more conscious. But then there's on the other side of the scale, I mean, this hyper politically correct world where the neoliberal SJWs are dealing with a misled sense of justice and are completely causing more division and more hatred and amplifying the problems of our world. So there really is a mixture. It is that magical mess. And luckily for some of us, we can fall back on our philosophies, our connection with reality in a way that inspires us with that faith and that hope and that love.
Yeah, it's happening really quickly. The only thing that prevents the critical mass from kicking in, and I do believe that we're way beyond the critical mass of enlightened and awakened people. It's just that we're divided. We've been deeply divided. And you mentioned once we have some sort of mechanism that will allow the people to connect and actually start sharing knowledge and information on the same kind of scale that the mainstream media distributes division and the lies and the control systems, the enslavement systems that are being delivered through the mainstream media. Once we find an alternative medium through which we can start spreading the positive news, the uplifting information and activities of all the amazing things that are happening around the world, in the collective consciousness that is rising and so forth. And the amazing things that people are doing, inventing and creating. Once we find that mechanism and people can then unite around that delivery mechanism of the positive news, the good news, somehow, I'm not quite sure how that's going to happen, but it could happen tomorrow, quite frankly, because things are happening so quickly now that anything is possible. So once we have that delivery that allows the fringe or the enlightened people to all unite and realize that there are millions and hundreds of millions of enlightened people, the critical mass trigger point will kick in and we'll see rapid changes.
Yeah, absolutely. I've written, you're speaking my language here, Michael, because I've written extensively about this over the last year. I figured that it's going to be very hard to unite the independent media and independent thinkers and researchers based on, a particular platform such as Ubuntu. A lot of people aren't going to agree with a resource-based economy type model compared to anarcho-capitalism or something like that. So it's very hard to get people to unify around that sort of ideology. But what I sort of tried to focus on, and I'm in alignment with Max Egan on this one, is that, there are some pretty simple ideas and concepts that the Truth and Freedom Network really are all supporting. And the obvious one is sovereignty. So, we're all most of us are in the belief of celebrating, honouring and respecting individual and community sovereignty. So that's a really simple concept that we can unify over. But the systemic aspect is of what I did is called it the 4 M's: money management, which is government and education, media and medicine, including food. So the 4 M's are something that has been turned into a scam as the fundamental control mechanisms of this control system. And if we start trying to bring some honor and authenticity to those systems and focus on that and share to the so-called mainstream audience that what we're standing for is not anti anything really, it's pro sovereignty, it's pro authenticity, it's pro honor when it comes to the way that we design our social system as we move into the future. So I would absolutely love to see the independent media and the independent researchers put down their so-called differences, and we're never going to agree on anything, are we? So let's just put the superficial stuff or even more fundamental stuff to the side and start looking at how we can actually unite. And we don't have to register our names or anything like that. We just need to unite around some principles to start sharing that to the world to show what we're actually standing for. And that's no doubt going to attract so many more people into the pro-freedom network.
Yeah, Phil, I hear what you're saying. And yeah, I think I need to correct something that you mentioned about Ubuntu being a what did you call it?
Resource-based economy.
Yeah, that's not what it is. And I need to really immediately say that's not what the Ubuntu movement is all about. And especially our latest, the latest strategy forward for the last year and a half has been the One Small Town strategy. Mm-hmm. One small town change the world, and that's a whole new ball game that we've opened up, a whole new can of worms that has got so many people excited and so many people joining with unbridled excitement, because within that model we have pretty much the solution for every problem humanity faces today, because the model, every community works it out for themselves, and it's nothing to do with resource-based economy or anything like that. It's and for that I need to come back to like you said, the different movements and the different independent media channels. We're not going to unite. It's impossible to try and unite them and have one voice for all the independent media. That's not going to happen. But what everybody knows is what everybody wants in the world. Everybody wants to be free. Everybody wants to be happy. Everybody wants to lead beautiful lives and be loved and not feel enslaved, feel free to pursue their talents and skills and contribute towards the benefit of their community and society as a whole. Everybody wants the same thing. And the One Small Town model provides exactly for that platform to be able to happen. And once people get into the One Small Town Can Change the World philosophy, after they overcome their possible preconceived ideas or some baggage they carry with them, and they really get into what it provides, what platform it gives us to create a future community of abundance and prosperity, everything changes, and it truly becomes an incredible journey of, now we know what to do, how are we going to get there. And so it's really important for people to understand, those that are familiar with the Ubuntu movement and those that are new to it, please go and study intensively. Don't just read a paragraph and you think you know it, because the trauma and the damage done by the current system runs so deep that our own stumbling blocks and our own hurdles become our own worst enemies, because we keep tripping ourselves up and we can't figure out how to get out of this mess. So as much as we try and unite the people on the different fronts and the different truth movements, we also need to provide a method how we get out of this current system. And that's really what the One Small Town model does. It provides a way of getting out of it and creating a new reality, a new alternative reality right now, as within this reality, without any violence, opposition, and conflict, by simply creating something new that makes the current obsolete, Because even if we become, aware of sovereignty, and we become aware of our sovereignness, and etc., all that information that's been spread around now for at least a decade or 15 years, people are really waking up to their sovereignty and who they are as living, breathing human beings. The big question, and the biggest question, has remained: how do we get out of the system and create something new? And that's the beauty that has evolved and unfolded over the last 12 years with the evolution of the Ubuntu movement and the philosophy of contributionism that has evolved out of that, and how simple it actually is for us to create a new reality of absolute prosperity.
So before you go on with that, you mentioned for people to research in depth what Ubuntu stands for, but a lot of people aren't going to do that. So can you define for us now, for those who are listening who don't know what Ubuntu is, what is Ubuntu in terms of the original model, and then how has that evolved in the small town?
Yeah, look, the original, again, it's an idea that's been evolving with the evolution of our consciousness, and how do we get out of the system, and our immediate and natural reaction is, we got to fight the system. We got to go to the courts and oppose the law and stand up for our rights and stand up for our sovereignty and go and tell the judges about the sovereign law and all this and that. And that's not going to get us anywhere. It does, however, create the awareness and help millions of people wake up by watching those that do it in the courts and stand up for their rights in the current legal system. But remember, the current legal system is a system that's created by those that have enslaved humanity. So you're not going to win in their legal system. The way we're going to turn around is to create something else that makes the current obsolete. Like Buckminster Fuller says, you don't create a new system by opposing the existing system. You create a new one that makes the current one obsolete. And by natural progress and evolution of its own, the Ubuntu movement has developed into exactly that with our strategy of one small town. If you recall, 6 years ago, we started going into politics. We went into politics in South Africa, in Canada, in the USA, in Australia, in the UK, in Ireland, and we tried to launch political parties. We did. We launched political parties in 4 countries, in South Africa, Canada, UK, and Australia, the Ubuntu Party. And we ran in elections in those countries, except Canada, because we had some infiltrators that basically had the party dissolved. But UK, South Africa, and Australia, we ran in politics. Again, just thinking that we should oppose the existing system. The moment you get involved in politics, you basically get it sucked into the game and you try and oppose the existing system. And that didn't work. But what it did do, it gave us a very clear understanding of how the system works, how corrupt it is, that what we think is a freedom to vote and democracy is such a wonderful thing. You realize that that's just another scam. Democracy is part of the control system. And out of that evolved the whole new idea of how do we change this? We can't change things at a government level. We can't change things in parliament and stand there and argue and bicker and nothing's ever going to happen. Where we will make the biggest effect is in the small towns and villages on the ground among the people, because change always comes from the people. And this is going to happen again. So the whole one small town model came out of realizing that it is going to be a lot easier to go to a small town and reach pretty much everyone in the town with our strategy of how we're going to take the small town and turn it into a place of abundance and prosperity by cooperating and collaborating. So if you watch the One Small Town Can Change the World video, it's a short 5-minute video that reduces many people to tears because they suddenly see in a short space of time how quickly, how easily, how simply we can create this reality for ourselves. And it is a beautiful journey of rediscovery, and it becomes almost like a giant group therapy session when people realize that we are so close. Not only are we so close, the One Small Town model has now already been adopted by one town in Canada. Mayor Ron Higgins has adopted it in North Frontenac. In fact, I had an hour-long conversation with Ron Higgins yesterday, giving me the latest updates from Canada and how well it is going and how he is already supported in his small town of North Frontenac by at least 75% of the people. there's such huge support for his implementation of the one small town model, and it is now starting to become the role model for other mayors around the world to follow the same principle. And in a nutshell, it's very, very simple. We set up a whole bunch of businesses, stroke community projects. But the key thing, before I even go there, the key thing is that we need to realize that we can't create this new reality without money. And this has been the biggest stumbling block. Even for me, for many years, we thought, oh, we're going to create a moneyless society because money is a thing that destroys everything. It's true. It is correct. But we can't go from zero to hero. So how do we create a moneyless society without money? That's impossible. And that has been the thing that has constantly tripped us up and slowed us down, because we never have enough money to do anything. And therefore, we constantly fail at all the different things that we've tried over the years have failed because always of a lack of money. So you see how this tool called money has been so brilliantly constructed that it will destroy everything that tries to oppose it. So out of this 12-year journey and getting involved in politics and understanding money, the banking system, how it works, who controls it, we realized very quickly that we cannot fight the tools of enslavement. In fact, we must do exactly the opposite. We need to use the tools of enslavement, which is money and capitalism itself, and we use those as tools of liberation. And the one small town model does exactly that. Because the moment we get a mayor and the council that sees this, as realizes that this is a way to bring prosperity and abundance to their town, to turn the degradation and the falling apart of their small towns, which is happening all over the world. It's happening in Australia, in the USA, in Canada, every country in the world. The small towns are falling apart. Everything is just getting worse and worse. People are losing their jobs. Factories are closing down. Farms are standing empty. And we change that virtually overnight with a one small town strategy. So the moment the mayor and the council adopt this, they then become the drivers of this philosophy and start to invite the farmers, the inventors, the engineers, and also the investors into their town. Because suddenly that one small town becomes, in a weird, twisted, poetic justice, becomes the most lucrative investment opportunity in the history of capitalism. And yet we are creating a foundation that is creating a society without money. Can you see the twisted, beautiful poetry in that, man? It's unbelievable.
Oh, sweet irony.
Yeah, exactly. So money and capitalism will become the tool that destroys itself. And the way it works is so simple, Phil, is that every business stroke community project will belong to the people, the council, and the investor in 3 parts. So remember, our whole philosophy is based on everybody has to contribute 3 hours a week. Well, how do you get people to contribute 3 hours a week? First of all, it's easy because everyone has 3 hours a week. So that part is easy. But why would people want to contribute 3 hours a week? Once they realize the big plan and the big picture and where we're going, that in itself makes them want to contribute. But there's a much sweeter catch here. The first thing we do in the one small town model as we kickstart this is we bring in our own source of electricity. There are a bunch of hurdles that come with it. I'm not going to go into that because we overcome the hurdles. We're busy overcoming it. So we already have new ideas and mechanisms and strategies and legal ways of overcoming, in some countries, the stranglehold that's been put in our way, where people are prevented from providing their own electricity. But we're dealing with it and we're succeeding. So once we've brought in our own source of electricity, and you and your listeners will know that there are sources of electricity that are new technology that do not rely on the current ways of generating energy. Once we bring in our own source of electricity, that becomes the platform to unite the people, while today it's a platform where it keeps dividing the people. Once the electricity belongs to us, to the people, we can then provide our own electricity to ourselves. And this is how the council and the mayor drives it. Basically, if everyone that contributes their 3 hours a week to one of the community projects stroke businesses owned by the community will get free electricity. So that's the starting point. After that, everything else that you get involved in for 3 hours a week becomes free to the community. So we set up from dairy and bakery and engineering and food growing, obviously food growing and food security, seed banks and water purification and everything and anything you can imagine that our town can accommodate. And we start producing and manufacturing and growing food and creating abundance that whatever we don't use for ourselves, we then export and sell to the outside community. And all the excess income that comes in goes into the kitty and gets distributed to the people, to the investor, and to the council. So that the council and the mayor keeps upgrading and improving and bringing new and starting new businesses and new projects for the community and with the community, whether it's building new sporting stadiums or new theaters or new recording studios or new sculpting studios in the arts and culture or dance halls or building engineering, new technology, new materials laboratories, research laboratories for alternative energy and levitation technology and healing centers that can actually cure cancer and cure all disease. All these things suddenly become possible because we start doing it together and we suddenly have the funding. Now, why would the funders and the investors come into our small town? Very simple, because each project attracts a specific funder. So if I am a conscious millionaire, and by the way, this is what's happening already, the conscious millionaires are looking really with a great excitement at our One Small Town model because it provides them with an absolute, a real thing, a real return on their investments while they are helping the small town to create prosperity and abundance for the people. So if I'm a millionaire and I want to invest into the dairy or the bakery in the town, I am the only investor in the dairy, and there's only one dairy in our town. It might have various branches, but it all belongs to the people with one investor. So me as the investor, I don't have competitors with other dairies or other bakeries or other engineering factories or other computer manufacturing setups. I, as the investor in that specific business, am the sole investor and the sole benefactor with the people and the council. Can you see why it suddenly becomes such a lucrative investment opportunity? It's a no-brainer. And not only that, I get free electricity, I get free labor because now everybody is contributing 3 hours a week. So the labor force for whatever it is that we do is free over and above, obviously, some of the specialists and the specialized people that we need to bring in to manage the intricate aspects of whatever it is we do. But the rest of the labor is all free that comes from the community. So what we've done in a nutshell, very, very quickly, the moment the mayor and the council decide to go ahead with us, we start a full-blown media campaign in the alternative media, and the beauty about this, on the mainstream media as well. We actually start putting out ads on CNN, on BBC, to say, I am Mayor John from such and such town. We are turning our town into a beautiful place of prosperity and abundance. If you can cure cancer, if you can create new energy, if you can do this or can do that, come to my town. We will give you whatever you need to make your talents possible, or so that you can do what you can for the rest of our community and the rest of the world. So, and also the mayor becomes the spokesperson to invite the investors into my town, into his town or her town, to say, if you want to invest into a real opportunity with real investments and real returns, come to my town, because this is a no-brainer investment. So I don't know if you can see how simple this model is, and this is why so many people find it so exciting.
It's certainly attractive, Michael, especially when we've got such a toxic series of elements within the social system: toxic food, medicine, water, economies, banking systems, even just the monetary supply and the governmental arrangement. It's evolved or devolved into a corporatocracy where, as you said, democracy is an illusion, and it's just an illusion of choice. Choose the puppet on the left or the puppet on the right. So it's, it sounds like a really really in alignment with the localization process that we need to go through. Because currently there's been a sort of a move within the independent media over the last few years to start localizing action. Instead of just talking about it on the net and having a whinge and exposing the problems and, attempting to find some potential solutions, we need to get busy on the ground and having an actual mechanism to engage. So it seems like this methodology is to still work within the system in a sense, because you're using local mayors and local councils to implement the model. So instead of working on a national bureaucratic type level, you're just going straight to the ground, straight to the people, helping them understand what they're missing out on and how we can potentially create not just this prosperity and health, but also the abundance. Because we're, for those you mentioned money and the removal of money before, and a lot of people don't understand that. They think that money is okay, it's just used wrongly. But the problem with this capitalist monetary system is it creates artificial scarcity. So when there's scarcity, it means that people are fighting to survive, and that amplifies all these unnecessary behaviors. We're environmentalized into wanting to be greedy, to be selfish, to be excessively competitive with each other. A lot of us are struggling to really get our minimum Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And so the actual system itself is generating all this toxicity and conflict that really has stored us in our evolution. So I do see a place as we move forward for going beyond our monetary system. And whether or not it happens, the next 10 years or 100 years or even 1,000 years, for me, I see it's important to move beyond that, because once we do, we really have an opportunity to really evolve at lightning speed. It really comes a cooperative society, a cooperative human family, not a competitive one. And I can only see positives to that. Now, before we go on, I know we're going to have critics that are going to say this is socialism or this is communism, but it's not, right? Because the people own the businesses and own the products and the returns, not the government. Is that correct?
Oh, absolutely. It's got absolutely nothing to do with socialism or communism or fascism or capitalism. It's like no other ism that we've ever had. It's called contribution, where people work together, they contribute, and they collectively own everything. No one is a dictator. There's no dictatorship like we had in communism and fascism, and so it's a very different system. But again, people become their own worst enemies. They jump to conclusions before they go and analyze what it is that we're doing. But it's okay. I know how it works. I've been doing this for a long time now, and I know how people come around when they suddenly see it and they go, "Oh my God, I was wrong. I see what you mean, where you're going with it." Every problem that we face as the human race has a solution for it encoded in this very simple plan of action. The one small town can change the world. Because the solutions come from the people of every community, not from some dictator out somewhere that tells them what you should do. People decide what they want to do for themselves in their own communities. How to solve the problem if they don't have a bridge across the river. They build a freaking bridge across the river because they know they need one. They don't have to go through bureaucracy and red tape, whether they can or cannot build a bloody bridge. They figure it out for themselves. They do it the best possible ways, use the best possible materials that are non-toxic, biodegradable, natural, and reusable, and technology that we don't have today because that technology is being denied to us. So it becomes really very simple.
And they make it safe as well because it's their community.
Exactly.
And they're going to look after each other and they're going to care for each other and they don't want the bridge to fall down.
Yeah. And just to come back to another thing you said, that we moved to a moneyless society. Within the one small town model, this is encoded in it as well. Let me quickly take you through the chain reaction here. So as we set up, let's imagine we set up 100 new businesses or convert some existing businesses, and also talk to you how we invite existing companies, existing farms and factories and existing businesses to join the One Small Town initiative. And you'll see how simple that is. Oh my God, everything becomes simple. That's the thing. Everything is so easy suddenly. But imagine we now have 100 community projects, stroke businesses that belong to all the people. We have our own electricity supply. We're all working together towards creating this new stuff, this new reality for ourselves. The beautiful thing about it is that because you just have to contribute 3 hours a week, it doesn't mean everyone has to drop what they're doing and we now have to stop and start something new. No, there's a very simple and elegant transition phase. It happens very smoothly without any jarring or unexpected requirements or impossible requirements from people. Everyone just contributes, finds 3 hours a week, and we allocate those people to different things as and when they are available. And this is how quickly we shift the system. But now imagine we have 100 new businesses, and each business makes $1 million a month, right? And so now suddenly we're generating as a town, a small town of 5,000 people, $100 million a month. I mean, where in this reality do you find a small town that generates $100 million a month? It's impossible. And 1/3 of that goes to the people. So every month, $33 million will be distributed among the people of that town. Can you see how quickly things change?
Absolutely.
And $33 million goes to the council so they can make sure that together with the council of elders, which is a whole nother thing, which is a council. So you got the political aspect, which will shift very quickly, the mayor and the existing council, and then the council of elders that ensures that look after the needs and the requirements of the people and make sure that the existing council in the transition phase doesn't start running away with the money, doesn't start doing weird things, that things are very well controlled. And the 1/3 goes to the investor. So the investor makes a fortune from getting 1/3 of the profits. The town, the people that contribute their 3 hours a week, all get money. And at the same time, the food, the technology, the furniture, the clothing, whatever we generate in our town becomes free to the people who participate while we export and sell the excess. So now, not only are you getting money for working 3 hours a week, you're also getting everything for free because you're part of the participating people of your town that is turning your town into a little paradise. So now, while you're getting everything for free, you don't have to spend the money that you get. Can you see what starts happening immediately? People start putting the money into a bank or into a vault or somewhere where the banks can't just shut their account and disappear, because that might happen. So the community might decide that they're going to stash the money somewhere. So every month, the amount of money in the town just keeps growing and growing. The people in the town will become so cash rich, they won't know what to do with their cash because they're not going to go and buy crap that you buy outside your town, because in our town we make the best computers. We get the best technology, the best everything, because that's what we do. So we're not going to go outside and buy cheap Chinese imports or some crap from some other place. We're not going to spend our money anywhere else except in our own place. That happens automatically. And that might not happen immediately, but it'll happen over a period of a very short space of time as we create more industry, more manufacturing, more technology, more innovation. But when I say industry, I mean new industry. Eco-friendly, green, completely green industry, completely non-toxic. Everything we do is completely new, biodegradable, non-toxic, reusable because we can. And our material scientists will be creating materials of that nature. So we no longer will be using steel and iron and chrome or gold and none of that. Why? We don't need any of that. We only use that because of the current capitalist industrialization. That'll change very quickly. So now we're all getting money every month, and our money keeps getting more and more piling up, and we don't have to use that money. And it's at that moment that the whole money thing starts to make sense to people, that we don't need money. We need each other. We, the people, do everything. Money does nothing. And that's the critical turning point.
I'm part of a community group that is trying to put together a food project, a localized food project, loosely based on the Ubuntu contributionism sort of philosophy. But essentially it's to relocalize our food system to a greater degree and also increase sovereignty, food sovereignty, community sovereignty, and incorporate and basically help to re-empower as well as potentially re-educate people as well by incorporating some mentoring and other sort of aspects into the program. And what we're very, very much in the early stages, but what we've really come to realize is there's so many people that have a lot of spare time, that there's more than 3 hours that they're prepared to give, and they're certainly prepared to give some of those hours. Even a lot of the time it's just as a moral decision. I'd like to give back to a project that's going to help the community. But it's also because when it comes to, for example, food, you're getting healthy, you're getting active, you're getting your hands dirty in the soil, you're reconnecting with nature. There's all these inherent benefits that come to contributing to a project like that. And there are so many, particularly older people who have retired and feel like they want a bit more of a purpose, as well as the young kids who are really disengaged in their indoctrination system. I mean, the education system that we've got going on at the moment. And so there's so much space, so much capacity for people to contribute to projects like this, isn't there?
Oh, absolutely. This is it's just going to happen more and more. And I just trust as people find the Ubuntu contributionism model and they realize how simple it is, and just take out of it what they need so they can implement it. It's going to happen faster and faster. But the critical thing is for it to happen in a small town. See, this is where you start getting the distinction between intentional communities and people coming together and growing food and becoming self-sustained and all that, which is not going to change the world. That's just going to create a self-sustained community, and an intentional community. It's going to benefit those inside the community. That community is not going to change the world, not going to break down the system. The one small town model will break the system by creating something new, creating an alternative system in which we still use money and the greed of capitalism that actually destroys itself. And that's why the one small town model is just so beautiful and so brilliant. And it took 12 years to figure out. It didn't happen overnight, because me personally, I had to go through all the same trauma and bumping my head and learning and realizing that you can't do things without money, and that people will only contribute so much time for so long before they realize, well, why am I doing this? There's no benefit to me. You know what I mean? And this is all the journey that I had to go through with the people that have walked the journey with me to come to this point now where the one small town model is so simple, it's so elegant, it is so easy to implement. And this is why the mayors of the world have now finally woken up. And I can tell you, it is not just one mayor. We have several mayors that we've engaged in the USA, in Canada, and now even in South Africa, in Austria also. And I know that our Ubuntu team in Australia are talking to a number of mayors and already engaging town council members and so forth. So it is spreading so quickly now that we're going to reach a critical mass very soon. But the moment we have one small town and one mayor, when we reach that stage where the mayor goes online with those beautifully shot little TV commercials and the positive messages and the updates of the progress from their town and what they're doing, it's at that point that the other people of the other small towns will start putting pressure on their mayor, saying, why aren't you doing what they're doing over there? And that's when the domino effect will kick in.
I know my mayor here in Bellingen personally and quite well, and I mentioned to him, it was on Monday, I think, a few days ago anyway, that that you've connected with the North Frontenac Mayor, Ron Higgins, I believe it is, and that I look forward to giving him updates. And this particular mayor here is a very conscious man. He understands a lot regarding some of the issues that are, the big issues with our system and what's going on with the world. And through that process of getting to know him and understanding that Bellingen has quite conscious people involved in the setup, the government arrangement, that it must be happening with so many people and so many councils all around the world and so many communities. People really understand these things and are dying for a solution for as we move forward. So I imagine as Ron over in North Frontenac, Canada, kicks off and implements the One Small Town project and does provide those updates, it's going to inspire and encourage and almost make a lot of local government officials around the world feel safe, feel confident in saying, look, they're doing it here, it's showing the success, and I want to try it too. And as you said, it will be like a domino effect, and a lot of people will become. I mean, we've got to try something, right? I mean, it might not be the most perfect model, the perfectly worked out system. You know, we don't know. It's all young and fresh, and there's always things that will need to be ironed out. But hey, that's the risk that you got to take to really create a piece of art, and that's what I see the next evolutionary phase in society is to look at our social system and design something that is fair and just, not just for the people and for each member of the community, each and every person, no matter how traumatized and how disenfranchised and disillusioned they are. Everybody deserves the opportunity to rectify their mistakes and re-engage in a community affair to look after each other and also the natural systems and, of course, the life on this planet as well.
Yeah, Phil, that's it. You nailed it, man. So, and you're quite right. We don't know what hurdles we're going to face, but that doesn't mean we're not going to we're going to walk the path. We have to walk the path because we can't carry on the way we're going. And at this stage, the One Small Town philosophy is so simple. It's so easy that we can figure out the solutions to the problems every day, every week. We can solve the problems. And the problems are very easy to solve. They're not insurmountable because we're suddenly taken back the sovereignty, in many ways, taken our sovereignty back. And we're using the current system to actually help us bring in the new system. We're not fighting, not opposing, no violence, no opposition, no conflict, none of that. That's old paradigm thinking. We're just taking the energy that's being thrown at us, the tools of enslavement, money, capitalism, the whole greed, the corporate structures. We're taking those and we're just turning that energy on itself and utilizing those tools to create a foundation for a new social structure of abundance and prosperity in which the money and that whole greed aspect will devour itself.
Well, a lot of people believe that's human nature, right? You know, they just say, oh, greed's human nature. And of course, we've got every part of the emotional spectrum in between us, but we are way out of balance with greed and this competition and this selfishness and this hatred and jealousy and all these natural parts of being human. But they are so prominent. The system, the environment has conditioned us to really amplify those aspects of human behavior. Yeah. And people have just gone, well, that's just normal. That's what people are. And no, I argue that we really, if we design a system that facilitates and is conducive for cooperation and love and community and peace and sharing and just really, you know, helping each other to not just survive but thrive, you're going to see a whole series of qualities really come to the forefront of human thinking, feeling, and behavior.
Absolutely, Phil. You're 100% correct, and I keep having to remind people about this as well. Human nature is not to be greedy, to be brutal, to be violent. Human nature is to love, to care for each other, to create, to constantly give expression to our first needs as a living, breathing human beings of infinite soul, is to be creative, to do something that feeds our soul, and that is to create, to do something creative. And that's where the additional, and so when people say that human nature is all these dark, horrible things, no, that is the consequence, that's human behavior, and which is the consequence of the current social structure, the capitalism, the dictatorships that have been imposed on us. That's our response to the way we've been treated. The moment you remove those, human nature will return to the true human nature that we are, connected to source, connected to all unbridled creative spirit, and it'll be a beautiful journey of rediscovering who we are as human beings.
Well, a lot of us are already undertaking that journey, and as we were talking about in the pre-interview, I'm really surprised at the amount of people who you would think more sort of fall into the mainstream thinking camp, once you open a dialogue with them, they really do understand some pretty, conscious concepts around what's going on in our world, what's happening politically, geopolitically, within the monetary system, within the banking system, but also around that the mindness, the beautiful interconnectedness, the magic of life. And so there are a lot of people who are waiting a little bit of a calling, so to speak. They're looking for a way to contribute to the change. They want to do it, but it's just so confusing because we're all divided and there's all these different arms or paths we could take to give back to our world, including a lot of people just give money to charities, and we know charities aren't working. We know there's a lot of good people who give a lot of money. There's a lot of philanthropists, genuine ones. There's obviously, the fake ones who do it for laundering their money, but there is a lot of genuine people who are giving their money to charities, but the charities they're not focusing on the right problems. They're only working on the symptoms, and really all that does is reinforce the current system because it appeases people to go, well, at least the charities are doing something, but it's really not to undertake any of the structural changes that we need to resolve the issues at their core. So anybody who is wanting to offer a little bit of money to, these sorts of, this sort of goodwill, they should really consider doing it for Ubuntu type projects and these sorts of projects, because it can actually facilitate the ongoing, sustained, long-lasting change that we need instead of just, temporarily touching on the surface of what our issues are today.
Yeah, spot on. Charities are, as you say, charities have actually become a scourge to humanity. All that charities do is create a society of dependency. And people just sit with their hands out saying, well, the charity will come and provide. And that's exactly what we need to stop. We should shut down all the charities and turn them into community projects that actually teach people something. And are not just charities that hand out stuff. And I know that some charities do teaching and educational stuff, but all big charities in the world are all owned by the banking families, and they're the ones that suck up all the money.
Well, we know what's happened with the Red Cross lately. And we know what happened with the Haiti Foundation over with the Money for Haiti at the Clinton Foundation. There has been so much exposure of the scams of these charities that we really should be taking it seriously, right?
Yeah, ask yourself, if you see any charitable organization advertise in prime time on television, you got to ask yourself, wow, where do they get the money? Right? The Ubuntu movement and how we struggle month to month to just get enough funding to keep going, keep our office running, right? And I constantly have to do work and do talks and tours and presentations and workshops to earn money so we can keep the Ubuntu movement going and keep spreading the message. I know how tough it is. So if I see a charity or running mainstream TV ads, I go, who's funding these guys? Right? Who's behind them? And that tells you the whole story. So next time you see a charity, your favorite charity, advertising on TV, pull your money out immediately.
Yeah, it's amazing. So look, the Ubuntu movement, which has been going, I think you created back in 2005 or something like that. Is that right?
Yeah, well, that's all the whole idea came into to life, really, when I was researching origins of humankind and ancient civilizations, when I realized that there were, for hundreds of thousands of years, people lived without money. So then you start thinking, wow, how did they do that? How did they survive for so long? Because at that stage, I was still thinking that we need money to survive. And then everything changed very quickly. Yeah, so the idea of contributionism came about in about 2005 and 2006. And then it evolved into the Ubuntu philosophy, which is what contributionism really is in a modern day world, contributionism. And then we turned into a political party, which was a really interesting journey of discovery. And now we realize that by getting involved in politics, trying to inject the seed of consciousness of this uniting people, creating unity and prosperity, we actually did the opposite. We started dividing people because suddenly we became competitors in the political arena. And we became just another player and dividing people even more. So we've now decided to pull out of politics completely and just apply the one small town strategy. And that has worked so well. We only launched the One Small Town idea in January 2017. By June 2017, we had our first small town, our first mayor. I mean, if I told you this 5 years ago, you would not have believed me that this was going to happen, right?
Well, I just want to give you a big congratulations. That is fantastic.
So now with a One Small Town strategy, we can go to any mayor anyway. It doesn't matter what their political persuasion is. If they are a mayor that wants to do good for their people, for their community, and for themselves, and leave behind a legacy of absolute change, future prosperity, we can go with our message to anyone anyway. And this happened to me 2 days ago, right here in South Africa. I had my first meeting with, after several previous meetings being cancelled and delayed and so forth. Finally, I got my first meeting with the first mayor of a major municipality in South Africa. And after an hour and a half meeting with him and the office manager, they just loved it so much. I've now got the green light to go ahead and put together the whole business model, the financial strategy, including bringing our own energy supply, breaking down the industrial potential of the existing municipality, the people potential, and putting together a plan of how many projects stroke businesses we can create and set up or transform, and how this is going to work, and how much money we're going to generate through this One Small Town initiative. And the mayor is then going to tell it and present it to the council, get the council to sign off on it, and we're going to go. So it is just unbelievable. So how quickly this is happening, even in South Africa, where I believed it was going to be impossible, because I was under the impression that all our mayors were just, stooges of a dictatorship, and I was wrong. Just shows you.
It's nice. It's nice to be wrong about something like that, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. and I can tell you, once the word gets out that this mayor has done it, all the other mayors that are desperate, because as you know, the situation in this country, well, it's desperate everywhere. The towns are failing, and the mayors don't know what to do, and they're controlled from the top by the government, and in many ways, and their hands are tied. They don't know what to do. Many of them want to do something good, but they don't know what to do. So when they see our plan, you can just literally see the light come out of them. The eyes open up, and the energy changes. It's a spectacular moment to be there, present, when that little shift happens in their psyche.
Before I continue on with that previous train of thought I was on, something you mentioned about how we didn't use money for huge portions of our society. There's other things too that we're sort of revitalizing. I spoke to Gordon White last week, who's a chaos magician, and he's talking about the re-enchantment of magic in our world. There's also the resurgence of hemp and cannabis, and as we all should know by now, hemp is such a versatile, amazing plant that can be used for literally thousands of products, such as rope, plastics.
Well, why do you think that hemp and cannabis have been treated so badly and have been demonized? It's exactly for that reason, because those that have controlled humanity for so long are aware of this. So they've, over thousands of years, have removed all those benefits and all those magical imbued, if you can call it that, imbued plants and parts of our lives. They've been removed aside. So we've been turned into a species of zombies, and a species with amnesia that has no idea who we are, where we come from, and what powers we once had that we're now regaining and waking up and bringing it back to ourselves. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, there's such a resurgence in so many beautiful concepts. Even philosophically, we're moving back to some of the tribal animistic philosophies on life. It's beautiful to see on so many levels. That's that duality again. The divide is just so amazingly, it's like a paradox, how can both these spaces exist at once? But it's happening, and it's bloody entertaining, and it's exciting to see us shift the scales back in the right direction. So and then not only that, we've also got an amazing opportunity in this day and age, in our current era. Welcome to the start of the 21st century, where there's been this technological revolution where we can get access to these new energy technologies and other technological sort of apparatuses and systems, all computers, etc. I mean, let's not go too far into the technocratic world, the technocracy that's slowly rolling out its 5G grid and all those implications. But there certainly is some really good technologies that we can utilize for good, for the benefit of humanity and benefit of our earth, the earth and nature as well. So there's this beautiful balance there, as well, when it comes to revitalizing some old energy, but also bringing that new energy.
Yeah, so that's really important you brought that up, Phil, because the people that follow my other research as well, the Ubuntu movement came out of my ancient human history and origins of humankind, and part of that research has brought to light, to great excitement of the scientific world, the ancient technology, the ancient hidden technology, which, by the way, I think that the vaults of the Baghdad Museum in Iraq were full of ancient advanced technology, and those probably the weapons of mass destruction that the CIA and the powers that were after. As you know, that the vaults of the Baghdad Museum were ripped out and taken away within 48 hours of the first bombs landing on Baghdad. There was stuff in the museum that they desperately needed to lay their hands on, and I now understand what it is. It's all very basic: sound, resonance, silicon-based technology that surrounds us everywhere. Remember that life and nature around us is the most advanced technology that we come face to face with every second of every day. But we don't see it like that because our education system has not taught us that we're actually part of an advanced technological environment and reality. Our bodies, every part, every aspect, every element of our body is advanced technology on a scale that no scientist could replicate. This is a deep thing that we need to start reminding people. We cannot create the technology that our bodies contain. Now, that is insane. But what my research has shown into this advanced silicon-based technology, that stone, silica, quartz, was used in ancient times, 200, 300,000 years ago. Those ancient people in those days who were very advanced, and that's why they didn't leave behind crap and McDonald's packaging and Starbucks coffee cups. They didn't leave those behind because they didn't use the kind of system that we use today. And it's very difficult to figure out how the hell they got things done, because their technology comes out of nature around us. And stones and silica can be used and have been used as advanced technology. Or toroidal field technology, cone-shaped tools, laser beam technology, laser technology that comes out of using silica vibration and resonance, creating magnetic field sound, and magnetic fields create electricity or other forms of energy. And suddenly we start seeing a whole new world light up. And why I'm telling you this is because in the one small town model, all this is provided for, that our scientists and our researchers will use this knowledge to create new alternative energy devices and alternative energy sources and alternative tools and alternative materials and cures for disease, cures for all disease that work very simply with resonance and frequency, which people that have done their research and listened to this will know what I'm talking about. So the one small town model has all this built into it. And this is why it's such a beautiful, simple model. And when I said right up front that the one small town model has the solutions built into it, every solution to every problem we face as humanity is encoded in the one small town model, because it opens a door for people to create and invent and do what is best for humanity.
Yeah, it makes sense that the Baghdad Museum would have weapons of profit destruction, I guess, if that's what the technologies were. Yeah, no,
that's it.
Absolutely. I've recently completed my first book, and it's just a fictional novel. I'm not a huge fiction reader myself, but I found it was the best way to present certain concepts and information. And part of that, I talked about sound being an instrument for consciousness sort of alteration or altered states of consciousness.
Oh, absolutely.
And I can
absolutely.
And I can envision in the future where, as Tesla said, think of the universe in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration, or something to that effect. And you know, we live in a sound universe. We're like tuning forks, tuning hopefully in harmony, but we're out of harmony at the moment, and it's all this awkward conflict of sound. But one day we'll be able to heal through sound. We'll be able to levitate through sound. We're already showing experiments in the lab where sound is levitating, you know, large objects. So where we go technologically in the future really is unbounded, as long as we get this scientism and this corporatism out of the way, because it's not just stifling our progress, it's also ensuring the continuation of suffering and destruction within the family and within the individual.
Yeah, well, it's the corporate structures, it's the corporations of the world that prevent the true human spirit from expanding and bringing forth all the inventions and creative designs and everything from, you know, in healthcare and technology, everything is there. People know how to do it, but the corporations keep shutting it down because it is, as you said, it's weapons of what? Profit destruction.
Profit destruction.
Yeah, exactly. That's brilliant. That's awesome. Yeah, that's what it is. But you know, we're breaking through that veil, and we have won this already. When I say won, we have. I know that on a multidimensional, parallel timeline scales, we've won this fight, if you can call it that, or the struggle already. It's just we're just going through the
motions.
Yeah, and just keep doing what we're doing, and everything keeps unfolding. And remember that we're the makers of our own reality. If you can imagine it, we're creating it already by imagining and seeing this beautiful utopian world of prosperity and abundance for everyone, abundance on every level, every imaginable level, from food, healthcare, housing, community, education, knowledge, spirit, arts, culture, on abundance on every level of our human experience. And we're manifesting that. The more people visualize it, the more people think it, the more people talk about it, the more we manifest it.
We have incarnated into a magical time. It's unbelievable, the conundrum of life right now, the challenge, the fight for freedom is obviously an ancient journey, and it's an ongoing journey. And we've really come to a point now where we really have the capacity to be free, to be really free, if we so choose. We're still, susceptible to economic enslavement on some level. But if people realize that their ideological and economic enslavement isn't so strong, and hasn't got such a strong grip on them that it can literally change their lives almost overnight and emancipate themselves from that struggle on so many different levels, we would have a huge amount of people who are willing, ready, and able to start enacting the change that we really need structurally and systemically to bring about a much better world. So it is a magical time to be alive. We should be grateful. I do agree. It's like we're playing this out. It feels like the momentum is there. The shift in awareness is there. Once you learn, you can't unlearn. There's so many people who are tapping into this energy. As much as we're still divided, as much as we might be a little bit lost and dazed, confused and stuck in our own rabbit holes, we can pop out of it. We can come together and we can move forward really quickly and even softly in a way that's going to not be sort of impact society, impact us in a seriously negative way. But over the last 10, 12 years, Michael, you have grown an amazing following through the Ubuntu contributionism movement. I know so many people who are aware of it. They have a lot of respect for you. I have a lot of respect for you. I think we're all very proud of the contribution, I guess, excuse the pun, that you've given to this fight, this ancient journey, this ancient fight for freedom. We really appreciate it. And if anybody who hasn't been involved in Ubuntu before or want to get access to some of the materials, do you have a place where people can get access to the information and share it with their local governments and share it with their neighbors and share it with themselves?
Oh, absolutely. Just go onto the Ubuntu Planet website, ubuntuplanet.org. We are restructuring it now. It's not really as functioning as well as it should be. We're turning it more into a news-driven site so people can see how busy the Ubuntu movement is, how much we're doing around the world. There's so much going on. Unfortunately, our website does not reflect that. So we're actually in the process of changing it so it becomes like a news-driven website. People from all over the world in 200 countries, Ubuntu members are doing things. They can upload and share. The One Small Town obviously remains our focal point and our spearhead strategy because that's the thing. That's the straw that'll break the camel of enslavement's back. But join. The most important thing is join the Ubuntu movement. Go to the website, sign up so you get on the database, and then start telling everyone you know. And tell people about the One Small Town model that this is it. This is the solution for us. The sooner we get our first small town going, the domino effect will kick in, and it's unstoppable. It will become unstoppable. So just share with everyone and join the Ubuntu movement, and know that we are on the way to liberating humanity from this insane slavery, and we're doing it for ourselves without any violence, opposition, or conflict. That's the most beautiful thing about it.
And our family and our friends and our fellow life forms on this planet.
Yeah.
So,
And also, Phil, the important thing, watch the One Small Town video. One Small Town can change the world. Just go to YouTube and put in One Small Town video and it'll pop up. Or on the Ubuntu website is also ubuntuparty.org.za. is the sort of blog website that I've been using to post a lot of news on, but that we're going to incorporate it into the main website very soon.
And I also encourage people to stay up to date with what's going on with the One Small Town in Canada. I look forward to seeing the 5 Small Town video or the 10 Small Town video, whatever comes next. And I'm sure it's going to come a lot sooner than later. So, Michael, absolute pleasure once again. I really look forward to our next chat to see how things are evolving, and I hope we can do it relatively soon.
Well, Phil, thank you. And remember, this is a collaborative effort. This is a collective effort. It's not me. I'm just playing a small role in this. It's people like you and all the other light workers and the conscious people out there that are spreading the message and information. You're playing a critical role in the emancipation of humanity by what you do. So you keep doing what you're doing. I keep doing what I'm doing. And if we all do that, the future is going to be brighter than we could possibly imagine.
Exactly. 100% agree.
Thank you, Phil. It's great chatting to you as always.
My pleasure, and thank you. Till next time.